Let's hear it for Tom Farley.
All righty. In 1996, if you can imagine, I was living in New York, kind of a cocky Georgetown grad, but everything I wanted. I mean, I was living in Manhattan as a Wisconsin kid, had a beautiful wife, working on Wall Street, successful as far as I could say. Hey, there was a kid that came every day and to my desk and shined my shoes for $5. That was cool. I was doing all right, and I'm sitting there one day. The phone rings, and it's my little brother. We'll call him Chris. Chris calls up. Hey, Tommy, I'm in New York. Let's have dinner. I said, yeah, I'd love to. Come down to my hotel. I'm at the Waldorf. So I get out of work and I'm walking down Park Avenue toward the Waldorf, and I'm thinking, geez, Chris has just gotten 5 years or so on Saturday Night Live that we've had a lot of fun together with. Just made Tommy Boy, but I'm still the king of New York. So I get up to the Waldorf, and beautiful lobby, get up to his room and knock on the door, and the door opens, and there's there's Chris, gives his big bear hug and welcomes me into this nice big suite. And there's another guy there, and he said, well, I got a little business to do, hang out, we'll be right with you. Sure, Chris, no problem. So I sit down and start reading a magazine. I kind of glance up and I see these two guys kind of looking at me. All right. So I start going back to my just hanging out and reading this magazine, and I start thinking, what happened here? I mean, imagine if you could having to share a bedroom with Chris Farley. This was my life. Sharing a bedroom, going to school, as a senior in high school, knowing that somewhere there's a sophomore that could round the corner any second and just embarrass the hell out of you. That was life with Chris. Never more, and he never failed in finding an opportunity to really, take me down a peg. I don't know what his purpose was, but a clear example. We're altar boys, and I'll never forget. There was one Easter where there had to be at least 5 priests on the altar, with the bishop being one of them. And Chris and I are there. And my job, because I'm the oldest, is to, at one point, we had to ring a bell. But Chris and I, being severely afflicted by ADD, quickly lose track of what was going on. And at some point, I hear this, Tommy. And I immediately think, okay, bell time, right? Pick it up and start wailing away, looking at the priests and the bishop just like, what? It was a what the fuck look, but they were, so just as I see this and realize I'm like 5 minutes early, I hear this chuckling next to me, It's like, son of a bitch, he did it again. But I took it all in stride because, this is my little brother. I mean, as much as I had to protect him. I had to show him the way. I had to be the example. I did everything right. I tried hard. I was neat. I read books. I did the stuff I was supposed to do. But it really bothered me. All my friends, all the time. God, your brother's so funny. He's so much fun. He's the life of even my friends. And I'm thinking to myself, the guy's an asshole. Are you kidding me? I mean, no, I'm serious. The guy was an asshole to me. I mean, I just, I can't describe it any more than that. So I'm sitting there, kind of thinking all this stuff as these two guys, I come back and they're looking at me again, and I think of like how Chris came in, the king of New York, and next thing I know, here's this guy, I did everything to toe the line, and yet Chris, I looked behind me, and Chris was effortlessly stepping over that line and winning friends. And he comes to New York, and I thought, wow, he's kind of got some success. But oh no. First week, calls me up, let's have lunch. So we'll go to lunch, and lunch was over, and we're parting ways. And Chris goes, Tommy, I don't have any money. I mean, I don't get paid I don't know when I'm going to get paid. It's like this guy that just inked a nice, couple $100,000 deal with NBC. It's like, all right, let's go. You go to the ATM, you get $150. Is that okay? Yeah, that should be fine. So I empty out half my bank account and give it to him. And he said, where's Fifth Avenue? Dad says that's kind of a cool place. I said, well, Fifth Avenue's up there. Yeah, look at the stores. It's kind of fun on your way back to your hotel. Half hour later, the phone rings in my office at Bear Stearns, a place that used to exist. And Tommy, yeah, I had a little problem. It's like, what happened? Well, I'm walking up Fifth Avenue, like you told me, and I come across this whole crowd of people, and they're playing cards. Huh? Were there 3 of them, Chris? Yeah, there were 3. It's like all the vices in New York. 3-card Monte was not the one I thought I'd have to start with, explaining. I go, what happened? It's like, well, they're winning all this money. All these guys are winning. It's like, yeah, they're all together, on it together. It's like, what happened? Guy looks at me. He's like, do you think you know what it is? And Chris goes, I do know which card is the right one. How much you got? Chris goes, I got $150. I go, Chris, the whole nut? Yeah. All in. I mean, that was Chris. All in. Plops it down, loses. So, all right, get back here. Give him the rest of my, bank account. Here's the other 150. Go up Madison Avenue this time, for God's sakes. That was, but it was fun. We were kind of enjoying, as much as I thought I'd own New York, and Chris was here 10 rungs above me. We were both looking at each other, these Wisconsin kids, like, can you believe this? This is so much fun. But I still felt I was kind of in control. And it's that time that Chris kind of took, kind of the, this drinking culture, and he got to New York, and he was all in again. And next thing you know, he had a real problem. He had a real problem with addiction, and many times I picked him up off the floor, and I was always there to help him out, and always got the calls from Dad, help your brother, and so I was there. But then he got it. All of a sudden, I didn't have to pick him up anymore, and he was working clean and sober, and his career is going through the roof, and he's doing really well. And I get a call 2 years into it, and he said, Tommy, it's my 2-year anniversary of sobriety. Can you come to the meeting and listen, be there with me? It's like, yeah, so I go to the address that he gives me down 11th Avenue and 43rd or something. I'm deep into Hell's Kitchen, and I look up at this old ratted building, walk up the stairs where he's met every week for 2 years, and there's this room full of people that they must have taken out of every soup kitchen around, and there's Chris with his blazer on, and he's there, and he's talking to these guys, and he's like, I'm no different from you. I'm no different from you. And I woke up this morning just praying I'd be sober. And here we are at the end of the day, we did it. We did it. And these people all knew Chris was a celebrity, but they just adored him. Because he was, as I always said, Chris was exporting Wisconsin. They loved him out there because here I am. And he's saying, and here we are at the end of the day, and we get the big payoff. We got cake and coffee there in the back. And I'm sitting there in the back of this room going, for the first time in my life, I don't know this guy. I'm looking at him like, what is this? You know, and I'm actually proud of him. For the first time, not his career, I'm looking at him like, wow, this kid figured it out. I don't know what it is. And it was a wonderful next couple of years. It was really wonderful watching Chris. We had conversations. He started like dressing nicely. You know, I thought it's like, he finally listened to me. But he told me years later, and actually Chris Rock got so tired of seeing me like all ragged, he took me down to Barney's and told me how to dress. So, all right. Then my son was born, my third child. I had two daughters who were, 3 and 1 at the time. And my son had some problems at birth. I think he coughed out a lung or something like that. So he had to keep him in the hospital for like a week. And it come to the end of the week, I'm like, we got to pick up Tommy. What are we going to do with the girls? And I said, well, let's call Chris. My wife goes, huh? I go, let's call Chris. She'd go, all right, we're getting used to this new Chris. So we take the girls down to Manhattan, go to Chris's apartment, and, we got to pick up Tommy. And we buzz, the downstairs, downstairs in the apartment, buzz the buzzer, and no answer. It's like, he knows it's today. I called him last night. Buzzed it again. No answer. It's like, shit. What happened? It's like, this is not the new Chris, the reliable Chris. And I look at my wife, and she's like, I knew it. And I'm like, the dread, I'm so bummed. And just at that time, I look up the block, and around the corner comes Uncle Buck, with 2 arms full of, one bag full of chips, Cheetos, the other bag full of like pints of ice cream. It would feed an army. These are 2 little girls, gummy bears would have been fine. But he's got these 2 Disney movies piled high. And to top off, these 2 big purple Barney stuffed animals. And this look on his face like he's so happy that we included him in on this. And he comes walking up. It's like, I got it. Go on, get back in your car. I got it from here. And, my wife and I look at each other. It's like, I never thought this would ever happen. And it was incredible. And so, I really, I'm back at the Waldorf, remembering all this and thinking, something went wrong here. He figured it out. I tried to set this example, and here's this kid that I just didn't think would ever get it. Got it. Something happened, and I look at him, and he and this guy are looking at me again. It's like, all right, time out, Chris. What's going on here? And he starts laughing. He goes, well, Tommy, I'm working on this movie. And the producer here says, we've got a problem. I go, and he goes, I'm playing this kind of knucklehead younger brother of this guy that's running for governor of the state of Washington, Black Sheep. It was his next movie. And the guy looks at me, Chris was telling me, and he goes, we have a real problem, Chris. We're trying to figure out what this uptight, serious, put together older brother of you could ever look like. Chris goes, hang on a second. I have him over here in 5 minutes. That's when he called me to go out to dinner. I go, got me again. But, from that, hey, back off, Pinocchio. From that point on, I started to really look at, it wasn't about Chris, it was about me. And, here I was realizing over time, and now I've written a book, it's been it's been this process. I moved back to Madison, and I kind of got back to my roots, but I realized that I was, I didn't know Chris. I said to my wife shortly after he died, I have this real fear that I'd be 6 years old, trying hard to remember who this kid was that was my little brother. That's not a fear anymore. Because I realized that all that time I was playing this character myself. I was trying to be this thing. And here was this Chris, a character actor, a guy that made a career on being something else. He was just being himself. He was being just Chris. And I think all that time he was trying to tell me that. Or he was just an asshole, but I think he was trying to tell me that. And I realized that, if I stop being this character, if I stop being this cliche, maybe I could get a little something of what Chris had. And, I've got that. And again, I don't fear remembering Chris. I'm just thankful for this legacy that he gave me. And what goes on from here, I'll always thank Chris for that. So, thank you.